Since I'm not a kid no more. Right.
What are you trying to load?
The packet. I missed the packet on there.
Oh,
Rebecca, I've got the packet in there.
Okay.
Those people.
That's the only one that I need pulled up. I'll follow the rest of it.
So it's syncing, it should check everybody's.
Actually, look for the age.
I think it's right here.
Yeah.
You go down to files here and see if. Is that where you're at?
That's where I'm at. I'm on 2021 PC.
Can you reload it and see if it's.
Well.
Reload.
I don't have it.
Yeah, still click on
While you guys are waiting, did you grab a cookie? Come on, cookies.
Birthday party today.
whose birthday is it?
Clint's.
Nobody's.
Oh, really?
Nobody's.
Is your birthday like today?
What's the big number?
And then can you
49 forever is what I heard.
back so I can make it bigger?
Happy birthday.
1971. Thank you.
He does have the pack up on this one.
Oh, to be 50 again,
Oh, there it is. Ah,
5 years ago.
I always try to make a big night.
The other ones.
I want to make sure they get synced up before I get started here.
Hi, Rosie.
Think in there, Mike.
Mike.
You get into your email?
No.
You're sent to?
I'll try again tomorrow. We've done three ways. All right.
It's all set. Or someone else?
306 pages, no big deal.
Just trying to figure that out. You,
I'm good.
you good?
Yep,
Yeah.
he's up.
I think we're all
Set?
good.
Get started as long as everyone's got what they
Make it
need.
big enough to read. All right, there we go. Increase.
You all set? Okay. Then it's about 7:02 now, so I'm gonna bring the meeting to order. A little better, I've been gone for a while, so I need some practice. We'll start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Roll call. Mr. Hall.
Here.
Ms. Hamel.
Present.
Mr. Hoag, I believe we heard was not coming tonight. We had an email on that.
I'm sorry.
Hoag, Mr. Hoag. not
I not heard by Mr. Hope.
Maybe it only got sent to me. I'm not sure. I'll double check after the meeting, to verify on that. Mr. Burlington,
present.
Mr. McGrath, we know is out of town, and Mr. Nixon.
Here.
And Mr. Conley is here. We We have Mr. Johnson here, our city planner, Mr. Womack. We need to look over the minutes of the last meeting on June 1st, 2021. That's page 4 of your packet. And approve those minutes or make any amendments if they need to be. Are there any suggested amendments or a motion to approve?
Motion to approve is written.
Second.
Anything else you see there that we need to address? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the minutes for last meeting, please signify with aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes are approved. And then the agenda. So before we actually approve the agenda, I wanted to ask Mr. Womack a question regarding the, I know there are a couple items of city business that are put on here because they've been hanging out forever. We've not been able to get them done. At the same time, I'm aware of the fact that we have a very full agenda tonight and that we may not be able to get to everything on the agenda. The way the agenda lies at the moment, we would get through a couple public hearings, a couple site plans that are old business, then those items, then go back to some new business. It makes it difficult for me to know with that orientation, if that's going to line up very well to make a determination when we do get to those items, whether they can be tabled or not. So would you agree that maybe we should move those to the end?
So as you know, we have our agenda set up with old business and then new business. The fence ordinance and the White Pine overlay have been on our agendas for what, a year now?
Easily.
Forever. I think I put them on there in the hope and anticipation that we would find some time to work on them. I did work on the walls and fences ordinance and kind of simplified it a little bit more for you. But I do agree with you. We probably should prioritize site plans over this type of work. So I don't see any reason we couldn't do that. We can move them to the end. Or you could skip around. That might confuse the clerk a little bit, but it's your call. I don't see why you couldn't do that. No.
With that being said, I think I would like to move to rearrange the agenda so that items C and D under 9 old business are moved to after item 10C, motion to approve the initial review policy under new business. It would still be old business, but that would be the order that they come in the meeting.
Make them D and E.
Yes.
I would approve the agenda as stated.
Here's a second. I made the motion. Are you?
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the agenda as amended, please signify with aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that we have our agenda. Moving on to public comments. So this is an opportunity for citizens that would like to make a public comment to address the planning commission. We also have 2 public hearings tonight. So if you are here regarding those public hearings, it's your choice when you would like, if you would like to speak towards those things, at what time you would like to speak towards those things. But if you would like to speak during the public comments, please step on up to the microphone there. And if you would like, give us your name and address so we know who's addressing us.
And Mr. Chairperson, just to clarify, since we do have a number of people in the audience, we do generally give each of the applicants an opportunity to discuss their projects at the appropriate time as well.
Absolutely. No. Are we still on Zoom? I've not done it this way before. Is there someone on Zoom that? Is there anyone on the Zoom call that would like to make public comment?
Mr. Murray, Mr. Bowenzi, you guys have any public comment, general public comment?
Not at this time. Thank you. This is Mike Murray.
Thank you. Okay. Hearing none, then we'll move on for public comments and we'll move to item 7, conflicts of interest, ex parte communication. It's the opportunity for members of the planning commission to disclose if they have any conflicts of interest with items that are on our agenda tonight, or if they've had any ex parte communication with people coming before us tonight. Hearing no such disclosures, I will move on. I thought perhaps that was a commentary of some sort. Moving on to the scheduled public hearings. So item 8A. I'd like to open a public hearing for the special land, for a special land use for G Rapids or Rapids 17 LLC. Applicant is seeking special land use approval for a drive-through business in the highway commercial zone. Anyone would like to speak towards that? This is your opportunity to do so.
Hello, my name is Melanie Hart. I'm with Paradigm Design and I'm representing Michael Murray, who's also on the Zoom call. My address is 415 Leonard Street Northwest in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I have my card. About the board for visual. This development is near the family farm and home, that you guys may be familiar with.
In front of?
Yes, in front of. family farm and home.
Mhm. That's good.
Better, but
If it makes you feel better, we'll actually provide you with a full opportunity to discuss the project at the appropriate time, if you prefer to do it at that time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can do that. Oh, I thought this was.
This is generally for the members of the public to discuss why they don't drive through
Oh, okay.
or do like a drive through.
Sounds good.
I would have let you continue speaking. The issue that I wasn't sure if you were just presenting it so the public could see what they had to comment on.
Want to
And
take
if
that now?
within those 4 minutes, if you wanted to do that, that's fine. But we also will give you opportunity to speak during the actual time that we go over it. Are there any other members of the public who would like to comment?
I'm Randy Baker. I'm at 14 South Main. Just want a little clarification when we say drive-through.
Mhm. I'm not,
Well, it's not customary for somebody to ask questions regarding what a drive-through is. All of this information is always presented to the public, full and complete site plans in the packet. And there's an expectation that the member of the public would view that and then have specific questions about it. Is there a specific question you have about?
Yeah, as a drive-through, are we talking driving up in front of the storefront? Or are we talking about driving in the
No,
back?
A drive-through is generally what you would think of as a fast food restaurant drive-through. There's a window, that you drive up to, you pay, and then a second window that you drive to and receive your food.
This is out on 17 Mile Road in front of Farm and Fleet.
New
Oh,
building.
I was thinking next to my store.
The address that's listed here is 4173 17 Mile Road.
Okay, I thought we were talking about
Next.
17.
So does that answer your question?
I was confused there for a moment because I hadn't, I couldn't speak to their application because I hadn't heard from them yet, so I wasn't really sure how to respond to that, but thank you.
Mr. Conley, would it be helpful then for me to give a brief overview of the public, what we're talking about while doing these public hearings?
Go right ahead.
I think the address and the location would help the public and the planner.
So it's probably just a little confusing because the name of the project or the name of the LLC is G Rapids 17 LLC. But the project location is 4173 17 Mile Road, which is an outlot located in front of the family farm and home between McDonald's and I believe the Advance Auto. They're asking for approval for a drive-through, presumably restaurant business on that location. And in the packet, which is publicly available, that begins on.
It starts on, I have noted it. Well, are you asking where it is in the site pack as far as the site plan? It is on page 2, no,
I've got 147.
147, you're right.
So with that being said, I guess, is there any other additional public comment?
Then I will close, well, we didn't ask Zoom.
Mr. Bowenzi, Mr. Murray, do you guys have any public comment regarding this issue?
This is Mike Murray. No, I do not. Thank you.
You. In that case, we'll close this public hearing and start the next public hearing. This is a public hearing for special land use for Thomas Maybe, DBA Van Cannabis LLC on 10 South Main. The applicant is seeking a special land use approval for a recreational adult use marijuana store. And I will let you, Mr. Womack, fill in the blanks on that just to make sure that we all know what we're talking about, and then I'll open it to the public.
Yep, so that one's a little bit more self-explanatory. This is 10 South Main Street. It used to be the framing shop. And the applicant is seeking to start a marijuana retailer business. And he's presented a full site plan for review.
That being said, is there any comment on that issue this evening? Are you? Okay. And once again, for Zoom, if anyone on the Zoom call would like to comment?
Mr. Murray or Mr. Bowenzi, do you have any comment on this item?
Hearing none, then I will close the public hearing for, excuse me, for Van Cannabis. Moving on to old business. Item 9A, there's a site plan review for JFJ Cedar Springs Properties LLC retail project at 4186 17 Mile Road. This one, not sure if I should throw this to Mr. Womack or Mr. Johnson in this particular situation because of where we were with Mr. Johnson being gone for vacation while some of this was going on.
Sorry, my attention is split like 3 different ways right now.
I will give you as much time as you need.
Okay. So as you indicated, this project was unfortunately submitted a little bit late to the city planner. As he once a decade does, went on vacation the next day and was unable to review this site plan. This is a second review of the site plan. So I did attempt to come in and review it. I'm sure it's not as good as Mr. Johnson's, but hopefully I hit the salient points. So in reviewing Mr. Johnson's June report, I did put together some notes regarding this property. So let's see here. This is the 4186 property. So this would be a new retail property store. I think it'd be a fair statement to say that it's being created as a buffer property between the 4116 property and the single family residential that currently exists on the 4186 property.
Location?
This would be the strip mall where the subway is located on 17 Mile Road, and then the land immediately to the south. So this was reviewed at the June 1st meeting, the city planner did put together a thorough review at that time. And I do have some comments if you'd like me to kind of walk through some of those.
Sure.
So applicant did put together the luminaires and photometric plan as requested. Although the photometric plan does not propose the 3-foot candles that this board expects at ADA parking. Now that's almost certainly due to where the wall lights have been placed. If they move the wall lights, they probably could meet that standard. There is another light which is on the northern wall, which if that was shifted over to the eastern side of the building, that would also help. There are no light poles, mounted light poles in the parking lot, which is probably a cost saving measure. And I think on their photometric plan, there was no lighting on the parking spots to the east. I'd like to hear them maybe address that, whether that's an issue. Sorry, I'm just trying to bring it up here while I'm talking. Okay, so applicant was asked to verify with the fire chief regarding submitted parking plans and whether those were approvable. I sat down with the fire chief and discussed it. And fire chief did approve of what I'm calling the old parking plan. You can see in my notes there that there were 5 missing parking spots that were kind of removed to increase the turning radiuses for the fire trucks. But unfortunately, for whatever reason, those 5 parking spaces were added back in both the 4116 and 4186 plans. So I don't know why that occurred, maybe a miscommunication between myself and the applicant. But at this time, this fire chief has not approved of this plan. If the applicant would like, they could ask the fire chief to review this plan, or planning commission could ask applicant to remove those 5 parking spaces and go with the plan that the fire chief had previously approved. Applicant was asked to extend a 6-inch water line from the north side of 17 underneath the street to a fire hydrant that would be placed on the 4116 property, and extend a 2-inch water line from there to the rear. I understand now that they'd like to upgrade that to an 8-inch line. We obviously have no objections to that upgrade. And I understand that might be for some future development. Developer did note the building height at 17 feet. I think the planning commission probably needs to discuss the discrepancy between the minimum required parking, which I believe is 93 spots, and applicant, I think, proposed 88. So, you know, I think we'll all acknowledge that the cities and most cities minimum parking requirements are a little out of whack with reality. I think both of these parties could submit a writing saying that they will share parking. That's probably sufficient. Looks like the exterior is going to remain mostly the same. Developer did specify a color, I'm sorry, cityscape. It's the color, it's kind of a dark gray color. Building materials look to be attractive and high quality to me, but that's a decision for the planning commission to make. City engineer did give approval to this project in their May 19th letter. And the city ordinances do allow the planning commission to create a parcel without direct road frontage, but that's contingent upon a road access easement, which has been proposed, but that would be a requirement of approval. And planning commission should designate the front lot line as the north lot line. So that all being said, which are mostly minor issues to my eyes, I'm a little disappointed that the applicant developer couldn't get the parking situation figured out, but that might have been a miscommunication on my behalf. So I did put in the planner's recommended motion from last meeting, if you guys want to follow along. But I guess there's a question whether a planning commission feels comfortable moving forward without the planner's review, because this is not my normal job to review these things. And there are a few things that you probably need to discuss whether those are required or not. So, Mr. Chair, how would you like to proceed?
My first question is, I understand, Mr. Johnson, you've had no time to look at this, so I don't want to put you on the spot. But before I move any further, is there any, do you have any comments on anything you've heard that?
Well, my main concern was whether or not the fire chief could get his vehicles back there. He has looked at it. I think we want to make, the other issue is we want to make sure that the site plan for this project for the vacant, single commercial building behind the strip mall, those two, the parking lot for this site plan, and then the one for Life Lake Farms, they're identical in terms of parking lot. Because a month ago, they weren't. I want to make sure that those two match up. You're correct, I did not have time to do a proper review.
I don't want to put you on the spot, as I said, any more than that. Just want to make sure that if you had heard anything that perked your ears up, that you had the opportunity to say so.
Mr. Chair, I don't think there's any major issues that haven't or couldn't be resolved. Like, we already have a parking plan that the fire chief has approved. It's not this one. So I don't know why there's any reason that the applicant couldn't simply say, well, you know, if you guys are okay with the other one, we're okay with the other one. Planning Commission might want to at least talk about the minimum parking issue. And if applicant wants to agree to submit a writing saying that they'll share parking spaces, that seems to resolve that issue, right? But we might also want to have somebody from the applicant side answer some of these questions.
Absolutely. I tend to agree. I think that this is something that could maybe be, at least has the potential to be finalized tonight. Whether or not it will, that's up to the rest of the commission. I'm not going to make a statement on that one way or the other. And theoretically, if there was an issue with the parking lots, for instance, like Mr. Johnson brought up, if we get the answer that we want on this one, they could always make the plans on the other match once we have one established. So I'm going to open it up to whoever, I'm not sure who the representatives are. If you want to comment on anything you've just heard, I'm going to open it up to you and give you an opportunity to answer those. And then we'll see where we go. Thanks.
So hi, I'm Jeff Halverson. I'm representing JFJ Cedar Springs Properties. As you know, we've been working on this project for months, and so I appreciate all the attention that it's been given, and appreciate the comments. We validate everything that has been said in the past, and even the concerns raised tonight. On that note, with regard to a couple of the issues that Mr. Womack just raised, we acknowledge that the parking on the new plan is not what the fire chief approved. And we do see that as a very simple fix. It's a matter of 4 spaces near the turning point for the fire truck to actually get from the 4116 17 Mile Road to the back lot 4186. And so that is something we are more than happy to handle and get taken care of with ease. We're also very happy to create some type of a letter, some type of a statement saying that will allow sharing between the back lot and 4116. We own both properties, so we certainly it's in our best interest to make sure that, you know, both are operating as well as they possibly can. So we don't see that as an issue either. Also happy to prepare a written easement and get that on file for the back lot, just to alleviate any concerns about a future division of the 2 parcels, to just ensure that the back lot has the right and will continue to have the right to access the building as needed.
I'm gonna jump in for half a second.
Please.
So there's 2 easements that probably need to be discussed. There's the road easement, which is required. And then there's the utility easement. So my understanding is that you're planning on running a 6 or 8 inch water line underneath the road. You're going to install a hydrant somewhere close to the road on the 4116 property. Then from there, you're gonna run probably a 1 or 2 inch service line to the rear of the property from your building. Okay. If you ever sell one or both of those properties, the rear parcel is gonna have a vested interest in maintaining that utility line. So you're probably gonna wanna have a private utility access easement over where that water line is gonna be.
Okay, no, that's, I appreciate that point. And again, we're very happy.
Sewer and water.
Well, utilities next to each other,
Yeah. Yep. No issues whatsoever with that. With regard to the lighting plan, we acknowledge the deficiencies Mr. Womack brought up. Actually got in touch with our lighting contractor today and actually enhanced the plans to address the concerns Mr. Womack just raised. Happy to circulate that. It's in a very small form, but just to make sure that those issues have been taken care of. I've also emailed you a copy, Mr. Womack, very late today. So I didn't expect you to actually even.
Mr. Iverson, would it be a fair statement to say that you've improved the lighting at the ADA accessible spot to at least 3 foot candles?
Yes. Yep.
So that's, I believe, the one requirement under the ordinance.
So with all that said, I mean, we just, at this point, we're just asking for a conditional approval, assuming we change the site plan to remove the additional parking spots that were placed on the new and improved site plan. Assuming we prepare the easements for both the utility and the roadway, as well as the shared parking letter to acknowledge that if there's any overflow, that there's parking available in that back lot. And I'm happy to address any other concerns.
Okay.
I guess, Mr. Chair, it'd be nice to hear from the planning commission whether the proposed cityscape color and elevations meet with the planning commission's approval.
Is there a place in the packet where we could actually see what color that was? I heard it was dark gray, but I didn't.
It was in there somewhere. There's a,
Yep, it would be on page 18 of your packet, I believe.
Yeah, there.
Yep, it was in their response letter, which I appreciate,
Oh,
by the way.
okay,
Mr. Iverson.
okay.
So,
Now I get it.
Yeah,
Oh.
not normally placed where it would be placed at. And it wasn't 100% sure because it kind of looks like it's a black and white letter.
That's what I thought. So I thought it was I thought it was a color that had been rendered into black and white.
So I Googled it and it is actually, I think, a Sherwin-Williams color named Cityscape, and
Yep.
it is that color.
Okay.
Okay.
And then you also see in my notes that the facade is planned to be 8 by 4 by 16 masonry blocks, aluminum trim pieces with that coloring. So, we have an ordinance which requires it to be a attractive, high quality material. So I guess it's up to the planning commission to decide whether that meets your requirements.
So I guess we'll address that quickly. Any issues one way or the other with the
Looks good to
facade
me.
or the,
No,
I think it looks good.
it was fine for me as well. So that's
very much.
one thing we don't have to worry about. I took some notes while you were speaking, so I want to make sure I catch everything. We have the issue of, it's unclear to me how many spots there are once the spaces are removed to accommodate what the fire chief said.
I wasn't sure about that either. My notes indicate there are 88 spots with 93 required. But I don't know if 88 is before or after removal of the fire. But I'm sorry, and of course, that's the 4116 property.
Yeah.
Now, I believe that the new property meets the minimum requirements. But I think it would be appropriate if they I know you own both properties, but if they would write a letter to the other side saying, you can use our parking spots.
Yeah.
Parking spots, you'll never, ever in a million years be full. But we just like to have that ability to say, well, you can't go park on the grass.
We've heard it in the past where you say, yeah, they can use it, and then someone sells one parcel and the other one says, no, you ain't parking there no more. Sure. So if we get it documented, it's there. Protect both parties, you and him.
Understood. Yep.
But the question is whether the planning commission finds it acceptable to make up for the 7-ish spots that are missing.
I don't, I with,
I have no
especially,
problem with it.
especially being able to go back and forth between the two properties, as long as that agreement exists. I feel like there's enough parking there.
Plenty of parking.
Okay, so, and the lighting has already been addressed. Yes. Question.
I think I'll ask you, Mr. Johnson, if they were to sell both properties, the back property, would they have, if the front property didn't want people driving through to get to the back property, can they do that? Or is now that front property a drive-through property now that's a road to get to that property?
So it's funny you should ask that question, because that was the next thing I was gonna indicate. So this rear property that's gonna be created, the 4186 lid off property, I don't know what we wanna call it. It's a condition that they have to have an easement to access 17 Mile Road.
Right.
The easement that's been shown is, I think, a 24-foot wide path that goes through the drive lane and then makes those two turns to the rear property. That's conditional. We cannot approve it without it.
Right.
It would also be conditional that they receive the 425 transfer into the city. And the lot split. So yeah, those are all kind of conditional.
So the front property can't shut them out.
Not if they have an easement,
Okay.
which is real easy to do if you own both properties. Yeah, for future use, they'd have to have an easement, including the utilities easement.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Haverson, do you have any objections to the front lot line being the north lot line on that property?
No,
It makes sense.
yeah, that's,
Does the planning commission have any issues regarding speed regulation through the site?
We have no jurisdiction on that.
Well, we can.
I tend to agree, I tend to agree with the developer or whoever wrote that letter, saying that it's the kind of thing that they could address in the future if it becomes a problem. I'm not, it's not particularly wide through there. And I know my instinctual method of driving is that when you have a narrow lane, you tend to slow down. I don't know if that's,
It happens when you
Wait.
turn 50.
yeah, I do.
Beat up when you turn.
Meeting adjourned. No, I'm sorry. I didn't bang, so it's not official.
I think with a left-hand turn and a right-hand turn, it's gonna slow down traffic naturally.
Absolutely. So I'm fine with it as it is.
Was something that he addressed in his, Mr. Womack's notes about the front sign with like a clock on it or something?
Oh, yeah. So maybe Mr. Hall can enlighten us a little bit more on this, or Mr. Conley, I'm not sure if you were on the planning commission at the time.
As we established, I'm old, but not that old.
So my understanding is that during the original approval of this site plan, of the 4116 property, of course, we are talking about 4186 at the moment.
Who owns the property now?
my group does.
Who is that? Drogi?
Pardon?
Is it a Drogi group?
A Drogi? No, JFJ Cedar Springs Properties.
I think that's the previous owner.
Yeah, that's the one.
So under the previous site plan approval, they were required to put in a clock on their sign. Well, so there was no requirement that the clock actually work. So there's been a sign up there for what, 25 years, and it's shown the same time. It's correct twice a day, right?
Well, they had to have a clock, but they didn't say it had to work.
So I don't know if you guys want to require that as a condition to remove the clock or what you want to do. It's just,
I don't have a
I
problem.
thought it was a
with
funny thing.
It did erect it there. They did cover up the water shut off going to that building and we had to put a new one in. I can tell you that.
What is the opinion of the planning commission? Should we remove the clock? Is it-
Ordinarily, I would say yes, but I feel like it's a little bit part of history now.
I was almost about to say the same thing.
They could
I
fix
guess-
the clock.
I'll leave that up. I would leave that up to to them.
Yeah, I don't have an opinion either way.
Yeah, put a turnstile within, it's like, the clock is like, there's too many other banks with times on it.
That's funny.
Put a nice design in it and still use it to advertise the businesses.
Have we covered everything on your checklist here, Mr. Womack?
I believe so. Sounds like
You
it.
gave us a sample motion here.
Mr. Johnson gave you a sample motion. and
Yes.
then that's the middle.
Oh, I thought you made adjustments to it along the way.
Minor, and they're highlighted in yellow wherever I have comments.
Okay. Before and anyone else can make a motion if they'd like, but if I were to make this, I'd want to clarify a couple things first. On here, on the original sample motion, it said that we needed approval by the city engineer under item 7. And you noted here that that's already done.
Correct. That was in a May, I believe, 19th letter that was already submitted.
So I guess the question is it helpful to include that in there, or do we just strike that because it's not a,
No, keep it in there.
okay, that was
Because
the,
the approval is the letter, so they'd have to follow the requirements of the letter.
okay. Then, that being said, I move that we approve conditionally this project. And I'm following along to help the city clerk here. I'm following along with the manager's notes. That item 1, approval subject to the following. Item 1, approval of the annexation request according to requirements of the 425 agreement between City of Cedar Springs and Solon Township. 2, that we have approval by the fire chief regarding emergency vehicle access to new lot and the need for a fire hydrant to serve the proposed business. 3, we're not doing anything with 3, so we're striking that. Number 4, the access easement through the parking lot of the property at 4116 17 Mile Road shall be recorded with the Kent County Register of Deeds and a copy provided to the city manager before a building permit is issued. Item 5 on this list, the building facade plan prepared by designs dated 5/3/21 is acceptable. 6, the planning commission determines that the proposed parking plan is acceptable if it meets as above with the approval of the fire chief. 7, that it receives approval by the city engineer. 8, the site plan shall be revised for items 1 through 3 of the report by Main Street Planning. 9, the planning commission determines that let me clarify this one. I'm sorry. Let me go back on that. That the approval of the lighting is conditional upon the approval of the zoning administrator.
Sure.
10, that the planning commission determines that there needs to be utilities easement provided through the 4116 property to the 4186 property. 11, we approve of the cityscape color and on the July 6th, 21 response letter, and 12, that the site plans completed by rules and dated as June 24th are approved with the required changes listed today. Judge, I intentionally,
We want that agreement between the two.
Mr. Chair, just a moment.
okay,
In your motion, if you back up to the beginning of your motion,
yes,
you went back to my motion that I prepared back in June. There's some items that, in terms of what you're approving, that's probably important. So that would be, I think you got that in your last one, that you are approving the site plan submitted by JFJ Cedar Springs Properties, prepared by Rosine Associates, dated June 24th, 2010. construct a 2,400 square foot commercial building and to create a new parcel as legally described on the site plan for construction of the building. As the project meets the applicable requirements of the HC zoning district, the approval site plan approval standards of section 40-51, and the criteria of section 40-440 of the zoning ordinance to create a new lot without public or private street frontage. We need to get that on the record. And then all the rest of the things you read were conditions of approval. So I just want to clarify that that's exactly what you're being asked to approve.
Okay. Are you able to amend my motion to include that? Okay. So, and I hadn't got to 13 yet. So these motions are incredibly complicated, but if you would take his preamble and combine it with what I've said, and now I will throw the 13th point on there. The revised site plan shall be submitted to the zoning administrator for final review and approval. The revised site plan shall be signed and dated by the Secretary of the Planning Commission, with one copy provided to the applicant, one retained by the city. Electronic version of the site plan shall also be provided. With all that, is that legally and appropriate? Oh,
I'd like to amend.
I'm sorry.
I'd like to amend.
Okay, so let's see if I have a second, and then it sounds like he also has a point. So do I have a second for that? Yes.
I'll second it.
Okay, and then you have an amendment?
Yeah, I wanted just to specify that the approval of the fire chief parking lot would be for the one that he first approved or actually approved, is the one that we're throwing in there. And then the second point would be for number 6, that parking is acceptable as long as you add in the written agreement in perpetuity for them to share the parking spaces.
I accept both of those amendments. I noticed that, or after he pointed that out, that I missed that part. So do I have a re-second on the amendment to this motion? Yes?
Second.
Okay.
No,
Any discussion?
we hear the motion. We all know what we're voting on. There's been so much added and changed.
So,
I'm familiar with it. I'm okay with it.
right,
Just for
do
everybody
you,
else.
do you have something there? Or,
I can do my very best.
okay. Because I can try again. I just don't have the part in front of me that Mr. Johnson added.
You don't have to read out every single one, we know.
Motion to approve the site plan set submitted by JFJ Cedar Springs Property and prepared by Rusin and Associates dated June 24th, 2021 to construct a 2,400 square foot commercial building and to create a new parcel as legally described on a site plan for construction of the building as the project meets the applicable requirements of the HC zoning district, the site plan approval standards for section 40-51, and the criteria of section 40-440 of the Cedar Springs zoning ordinance to create a new lot without public or private street frontage. Approval is subject to the following: 1, as presented; 2, approval of fire chief regarding emergency vehicle access to the new lot and the need for a fire hydrant to serve the proposed building. And it was amended to state that the first plan would be the plan that would be approved. Number 3, as presented. Number 4, as presented. Number 5, the building facade plan presented by Designs dated 5/3/21 is acceptable. Number 6, as presented with an amendment that the fire department chief would need to provide approval of the parking lot. Number 7, as presented. 8, as presented. 9, lighting approval is approved conditional on final approval from the zoning administrator. Number 10, utility easements must be provided through the property, through 4116 property to the 4186 property. 11, as presented. 12, the site plans completed by Rusin dated and revised of June 24th are approved with the required changes listed today. And 13, as presented.
Thank you.
Get all that?
You.
I would add in the letter for the two properties. That was missing. Number 6.
Shared parking.
Yep, I have that as presented and it says here, oh, you just want to make it a requirement. I
Mhm.
see that last sentence. Planning commission would require written agreement between the two parcels
Mhm.
if they will share parking.
Perfect. Thank you.
So that's,
Got it?
Yep.
yes. Sounds great. I agree. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify with aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you. I didn't mean to leave you standing up there.
No, you're
Sorry about
Yeah,
that.
fine.
I got so into what we were doing there. Okay. I've got the back in front of me here. Which takes us to the next item. This is item 9B, site plan review and special land use of Lake Life Farms for recreational marijuana retail store and a recreational adult use marijuana processor at 4116 17 Mile Road. Once again, Mr. Womack, this kind of fell more into your,
I'll be happy to go through my
you
notes.
touched it most recently, I think.
So with the approval on the other property, this should be simpler. So this is an existing strip mall. This is the strip mall where there's a Little Caesars and a Subway. And Lake Life Farms is proposing a marijuana retailer and a marijuana processor. So here are some of my notes. There's a newly revised sketch plan that was submitted to me. It still bears a revised date of 5/3/21, which can't possibly be true. So that needs to have a new revised date, probably of 6/28/21. See, the doors were correctly labeled. The ADA spot was moved appropriately. The pickup window has been removed, but the applicant has indicated he would like to possibly add that back in at a later date, which he would just go through a normal city process to do that. The same issue with the number of parking spots, but it sounds like the planning commission was okay with it with the previous project. So you would just have to kind of write that into your approval here. Mr. Johnson did indicate that in the previous plans, it indicated grower, not processor. Unfortunately, that has not been fixed. So that needs to be fixed. The 4116 sketch plan, and I understand and appreciate that we're talking about Lake Life Farms, which is a third-party business, whereas Mr. Haverson's company, JFJ, owns both parcels. Their site plan probably should show both the road access easement and the utilities easement. I personally would be okay with a narrative statement acknowledging those. And have them simply be submitted to the Kent County Register of Deeds. But I guess it's up to the planning commission whether they want to see those indicated on the sketch plan. The city planner did indicate in his last report a proposal to install some parking islands. I believe he had 2 or 3 listed in his previous report. I'd personally be okay with a crosshatch painting design to discourage people from parking in those locations. And those would assist the fire chief with his turning radiuses. So I guess you guys have to decide whether you want to require parking islands or whether cross hatching would be sufficient. All of this, of course, is contingent upon approval of the 4116 property, the 425, and the land split, which they just received approval. Sorry, they just received preliminary approval. I don't remember seeing a lighting plan on this. I did receive a couple emails today, so I don't know if that was in there. But I guess that's a discussion for planning commission, whether they think that site is sufficiently lit as is, or whether we want to require additional lighting. One specific note I have here is that the dumpster enclosure proposes 2 gates of chain link with slats. And that is a prohibited item to be used for dumpster enclosures. So it'll have to be addressed. Facade appears to only be painted and cleaned up, but not changed. Sidewalk and the driveway appear to be approvable as presented. Of course, as you guys know, this project is not approvable with the property line shared between this 4116 property and the single family residential. But with the preliminary approval on the 4186 land split project, that should be approvable at that point. It appears that the only access to the processing side is through the eastern facing garage doors. We might want to ask applicant if that's true or if I'm missing something and whether the planning commission is okay with it. Developer did indicate a very generalized plan for how to receive and address citizen complaints. You can ask for a more specific plan if you don't think that was sufficient. I don't remember seeing an ADA plan. I think the planner indicated that he didn't see it either, which is strange because that's normally something I review as part of the submission process. So maybe applicant can point out where they did submit that. Odor elimination plan seems sufficient and approvable. Blade elimination plan seems appropriate. For the planner's original report, the developer has, I guess, not appropriately labeled their floor plan. I believe in the project narrative, it indicates that they have a processing bay and an inventory storage room, but those do not appear on the floor plan. There are references in there to cultivation, and there should not be any cultivation occurring at a processing and retailing location. And side note regarding the clock on the front signage. So those are my notes.
Okay. There is, it looks like there's a lot there.
There's a lot, but I think a lot of it can be kind of pared down simply. And maybe similar, if we have applicant present, we could put him in the hot seat and ask him some questions.
Is the applicant present?
Yes. May it please the commission, I'm David Kotler on behalf of Lake Life Farms. Nice to see you all again. I can kind of go point by point and try to knock a couple of these out. I think one of the points that the commission spent the most time on last time was the issue of the pickup window, which has been withdrawn, frankly, in consultation with the inspector who inspects this area and also is the same inspector we have in Big Rapids. That kind of thing and curbside seems to be towards getting phased out in the near future. And so it makes no sense. It's something we're withdrawing and I don't think you'll ever hear from us again in regard to that. So probably doesn't bear much discussion, if any. In regard to any of the mislabeling on the grower processor side, that certainly we can clean up. I wasn't sure, frankly, if that was in the architect's plan or if it was on the updated site plan. But from a ministerial standpoint, we recognize certainly that no cultivation will be going on and we can make that amendment and then submit it if necessary. Mr. Womack's proposition in regard to painting designs versus parking islands is a reasonable one. It's a little difficult as a tenant to step into the shoes of the landlord who would have the contractual responsibility to us as the tenant to make certain changes to comply with the site use and what the commission finds. But they are here also and just kind of supporting the landlord in that effort. I think that the painting design is certainly a workable resolution, even more so than the islands, certainly when it comes to fire trucks and the safety of those type of personnel. The lighting plan, it's an existing lot. They have the hi-hats. There have been retail uses throughout that facility. I believe that we had submitted one. I know I've seen it. I can always supplement. Obviously, we would need it on the building side. But that's something that's certainly at our fingertips. Again, stepping into the shoes of a landlord in regard to the dumpster, I know that, but the property owner is willing to do whatever they need to comply as an obligation under their contract as well as this plan. And so I think that's relatively fixable on the dumpster side. And they've spent some considerable time recognizing that it's got to be painted and changed and what have you. And they may have already planned for that to happen in very short order. I know that the parking lot's being redone within the next 2.5 weeks. And I think they probably undertook some of the dumpster issues in advance with that. In regard to number by row to 6, which was the processing area and egress and ingress, I don't believe it's a garage door. It's a single access door in the rear of the property, which I think was described as the east side. So that is correct that the entry to the processing area, because it's not open to the public, would be to that door. I don't believe it's a garage door and just a regular door. And so again, if that's something we need to clean up, certainly as a condition, we can do so. Moving right along, in regard to the ADA plan, it was pointed out to me by the property owner that there is a handicap accessible spot directly in front of the retail space we've proposed. I'm not sure if the ADA plan is referring to the site plan, which on some level the landlord has more control over than we do. Yet we've tried to work together to accomplish that, or if the ADA plans moving towards or addresses what was prepared by the architect and some additional statement in terms to ADA compliance. I've done work with that architect before, and I know that he generally covers it. If that is something that we need to provide as a condition of any purported or potential approval, it's certainly easy enough to do. It's within our wheelhouse to get it and get it quickly if necessary. Trying to get to everything that was mentioned, I think that covers most of those items. Knowing that the commission had previously approved the site plan for a other provisioning center that was going to take place there, we tried to keep it consistent with what decisions the commission had previously done, and except for the benefit of getting rid of the pickup window, which I think probably took up most of the last time's meeting. So hopefully we've saved you a few minutes, but I'm available to answer any questions or concede to any issues we need to hopefully move forward.
I have a question and I want to make. So, Mr. Womack, you brought up, it would be under your point 19 on here. The developer needed to change the floor plan to comport with project narrative, called out a processing bay and inventory storage room. But you're saying that there's not an updated floor plan. So that didn't sound like that was addressed.
Yeah, so this is almost one of those silly labeling issues. He says that they're gonna have a processing bay and an inventory storage room, but then it didn't show up on the original site floor plan. Frankly, I didn't check that portion of it to see if that was fixed. Mr. Cotler, did you fix that on the new?
I don't know that I did. Candidly, I'm not sure I saw that as something that was pointed out. I know that you probably did. I missed it. It would have been a 2-second switch, to be honest
This
with
is one of
you.
those things that only Mr. Johnson would see. I wouldn't have seen that. So I'm okay with just saying relabel it the way it's supposed to be relabeled.
Not a big deal.
It's not
Okay.
that big a deal.
What page might we be on this process in our packet?
This would be page.
The start of the site plan is on 100.
Spread out.
Yeah, it is.
Large.
Mr. Cotler, you cause all these problems when you create a thorough site.
Wouldn't be the first time I've caused a snafu, that's for sure.
So a good floor plan would be at page 120.
Yes.
I mean, labeling issues, I don't think we're really that concerned about, it could be a conditional approval upon meeting all the relabeling issues, subject to zoning administration approval.
Matter of cut and pasting on the print.
Mhm.
There was talk about using the east side doors as, that is an alleyway back there, which I know is kind of tight. And because I haven't seen a lighting, plan, how would we know if there's sufficient lighting back there for like employees and everything back there?
Everson, could you speak to that?
Remember that show with the lifeline? This is where I throw call a friend, see if it can help.
Where it's placed, I can't see.
I think there's pack lights on the back of the building.
Generally speaking, I apologize for not kind of elucidating that a little bit better. But my recollection on the walk, because it's a retail building, there was a restaurant as well as a tanning booth, I think, previously in those spots. Kind of par for the course, but we can make it a condition that if it's there, it's not sufficient. I mean, through the building process, I think we'd have that responsibility anyway.
I think at the least, we're gonna throw this to the zoning administrator.
That would be my
To
recommendation.
approve a lighting plan.
Approve sufficient lighting.
Yeah, because you do see on the plan that they got the actual cameras.
Yes,
towards
There'll
the
be a
back, too.
cameras there anyway.
Yeah,
they have cameras, but in light of
yeah, it does.
certain situations, I want to make sure that it's lit up back there very well.
So I was attempting to go through here and as we went, identify the issues that still needed to be dealt with. We had a dating issue on the plans. We had a labeling issue for grower versus processor that had to be fixed. How is everyone comfortable with the cross hatching of the parking spaces instead of islands?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes.
We had discussed that.
It makes sense for me regarding the fire truck access.
And snow plowing too. Makes it a lot
Um,
easier.
Lighting, we sound like we're okay with this if we throw it to the zoning administrator. The dumpster, I think we can also make that conditional upon zoning administrator.
Yeah,
approval.
they put it there, something that's not approvable. So
So I guess that's the question. Do we need to see something that would be approvable?
So generally, the planning commission would identify the location of the dumpster enclosure. This is a pre-existing dumpster enclosure.
Mhm.
So I'm fine with you punting it to the zoning administrator for approval.
Didn't they give us a color for the dumpster approval? Or
I
the,
thought I seen a stain in there.
yeah, there's a stain in here.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
Okay.
the okay,
It'll match the building.
sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't mind the stain for new boards.
some privacy panels.
Item 15, Mr. Womack, there was a thing in here about the addressing citizen complaints.
Yep, so in their, I believe their customer plan, we do require that they indicate that, that they will receive customer complaints and how they'll do that. I believe the plan that was submitted basically says we will receive customer complaints. That's very generalized, and that's fine, but I didn't know if the planning commission wanted to see, we will put our phone number on this and we will have a website that does this, and which is what most of these marijuana groups have done.
I think a process should be.
I mean, I can explain how it works currently in practice, if that's helpful.
You're welcome to, but in the end, I think I would want to make sure that there was something written that would be addressed.
Fair enough. You tell me and I'll do it.
I'm happy with as long as you submit a plan to the zoning administrator, city manager here, that has a detailed process.
Easy enough.
Your process.
All right. This one is going to be significantly more difficult for me to do because I don't have. Yes,
I'd be glad to help you out.
thank you.
Mr. Womack did a good job of summarizing what needs to be done, but I did not get I didn't even see a site plan. revised site plan, so. But what Mr. Womack has put together and what we talked about tonight, I think if we go back to my report dated June 1st, and that motion that's in there, which I can needs to be updated a little bit, that covers everything that needs to be covered. Tabled it last month primarily to address those items that were in my report. They weren't. Window, which was the walk-up window, which was the main cause of concern, has been taken out. This has been approved already as white pine provisioning. We're not really doing anything different. It's less intensive.
Mention one thing. So just to be clear, Lake Life Farms did not submit an amended site plan,
That's what they get.
right? In part to save the effort of trying to figure out the difference between what landlord had amended as part of the adjacent lot and what we had initially amended. Frankly, I made an executive decision that probably would have created more confusion. So to really put it in your lap, to be able to adopt one that made sense as a universal parking lot design is really what it comes down to. And so I bring that to your attention. I don't want anybody misspeaking or thinking that we amended something, because I think it's on the commission can say, hey, we've looked at what has been done universally. If you want to put it on us, so to speak, through our site plan to adopt that, I think that may be an expeditious way to do it. I didn't want to make sure we were now, once again, because we have a different civil engineer as they use, creating more confusion. But I want to make sure that we're speaking the truth.
Thank you. This was
It's a little different.
this is a complex
Yeah.
situation we have here. So,
A lot of moving parts.
and frankly, I was curious if we'd be able to get it finished tonight. It sounds like we're close, so I'm trying to see if we can.
I appreciate it. And for that reason, I'm
get
going to sit
something
down.
here So that we don't have to relearn this a third time.
Chair,
Yes.
the city planner's June 1st report is in your packet.
Mhm.
Page 1, 2, 3. And I think he's going to walk you through a proposed motion.
128.
It's on 129 for the proposed motion.
I have.
Okay, go ahead.
Everybody have that?
Sure.
Okay. The motion here is as written. And it's for the same site plan dated 5-3-21. And you can say whether it does or does not meet those standards. But under the conditions, I would change that to say approval of the special land use permit is conditioned upon approval by the planning commission of the site plan dated June 24th, 2021. Submitted by JFJ Cedar Springs Properties and conditionally approved by the commission on July 6, 2021. And then it's also conditionally approved approval of the lot split request as presented there. That the rest of that would stay the same. And I think we'd add a new number 2 that the parking lot layout for the site plan must match the site plan approved for the JFJ property. 2 would be the same as presented. 3, we would change that to say the site plan shall be revised to illustrate pavement markings in the southern portion of the parking lot. And that's subject to approval of the city manager or zoning administrator. 4 and 5 are the same. And the rest is the same as well.
Okay.
Ms. Johnson?
Then we need to have the, I'm sorry, the dumpster shall be revised to comply with the zoning ordinance requirements.
Mr. Johnson,
gates.
is there something in here regarding the condition upon the final
Easement?
approval of the 4186 property?
Yeah, that would be in the motion, I think.
The beginning.
Put the JFJ Cedar Springs properties. No, I didn't put the address in there, but we can add
That's
that.
fine. That's fine. I just want to make sure we all know that as much as we like Mr. Kotler and Lake Light Farms, we simply cannot do it unless the other property gets finalized.
Agreed.
Do we know if the security plan was approved?
So Security plans are reviewed by Sergeant Probst. And of course, we do a final walkthrough with this property prior to them opening.
Okay.
But ultimately, the security plans are approved by the state of Michigan.
Okay.
We simply ask that they provide it to us for review. There's not really an approval as I see it.
Okay, thank you.
We can review it though. They have to show it to us. We look it over and then we make comments.
Mr. Conley, did you make that motion?
I haven't made that motion yet because I wanted to see if Mrs. Johnson was able to put together a reasonable facsimile of a motion for me, or I just said I'm going to copy it. Okay, then I would make a motion in exactly the same verbiage that Mr. Johnson just made.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Strongly recommend you guys can talk to me soon this week.
Who's on third?
And we're not opposed if you want to leave.
Yeah.
Okay. So, bear with me for a moment.
The two.
We moved items C and D under old business. So that takes us to, excuse me, item 10A under new business. Special land use for, I'm sure they'll enlighten me on the proper way to say their LLC, G Rapids 17 LLC at 4173 17 Mile. Since we don't apparently have Mr. Womack at the moment, would you like to start us off with that, Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, I can do this one because I actually wrote a review.
That would be perfect.
What page might we be on? Go ahead.
I have that we're on page 147.
That's what I thought.
This is a good night. We get to get past page 300 before it's done. Okay. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, you are holding a public hearing tonight on a request from Grapid 17 LLC to consider a special use and a site plan for a drive-through restaurant. That is what the special use permit is for. And as part of that site plan, there's another one or two tenant spaces in the building that is on the site plan that you have. This property is located at 4173 17 Mile Road, which is a vacant outlot in front of the family farm and home and between McDonald's and Advanced Auto Parts. Consists of 0.927 acres. There's an asphalt parking lot there currently. It is owned HC Highway Commercial. They provided us a site plan dated 6-22-21, which is there. And we have a representative from Paradigm that will follow up my report and answer your questions. Probably the biggest item here has to do with parking. That seems to be a fairly hot topic these days in Cedar Springs. But the uses that are being proposed there would require 75 parking spaces plus a few more for employees. They have provided 37 spaces, so they're quite short. There is a requirement or language in your zoning ordinance that I think is kind of vague, but I think it tells the planning commission that you can determine the minimum number of parking spaces required for off-street parking. So really the burden is on the applicant to demonstrate that the 37 parking spaces is really all they need. And again, the option that I think I put in here is maybe you could get a joint parking arrangement with family farm and home across the parking aisle to the north of that. I don't know if they have sufficient spaces to meet their needs. I think they probably do, but that might be an alternative to require a cross parking access easement so that they have possibly enough parking spaces. The setback requirement used to be 40 feet from the rear property line. It is now 20 feet. And Mr. Womack, did the city council pass that amendment? Are they about to?
Mrs. Johnson, have they passed that ordinance? Mr. Hall, has the council passed that change?
I'm not sure. I believe so. We've done so many things.
Mr. Johnson, I guess my comment would be that I anticipate it will happen, whether it has happened yet, we have yet to determine.
I also anticipated it would happen. So
Tuesday night.
assuming it will happen, that the setback from the north property line is 20 feet based on the amendment that will or has been adopted, so that they do comply with that. I suggested that a walkway from the sidewalk along 17 Mile Road be extended to that building, so pedestrians can walk up to the building. A do not enter sign should be placed at the exit driveway in the northeast corner, plus a stop sign for vehicles exiting the site. And that's really, if you have that site plan in front of you there, where vehicles exit the drive-through lane, they're also exiting the whole parking lot, because it's kind of a one-way flow.
Yeah.
We have vehicles exiting the drive-up window, and they're competing with cars to their right, also going in the same direction. If they both decide, one decides to turn left and one turns right, we could have an issue. Fortunately, drivers tend to look out for each other in those kind of slow-moving situations. It's not ideal. It'd be nice if the driveway for exiting vehicles from the site were located a different, some distance away, but it's not possible given this layout. So that, I think, needs to be explained maybe by Mr. Murray, who is listening in and is proposing this project, how that works in other communities, but that's kind of an item of concern. I also suggested that as you enter the site on the west side, the 2 parking spaces closest to the entrance point, I think as they back out, that could be an issue. So I would ask that those 2 spaces be removed. And then the building facade, that's kind of a glass, the part that faces 17 Mile Road is glass, and then metal panels that are called out as zinc gray. The rest of the project is split face concrete block. Arguably, that meets our code. I would leave that up to the planning commission to decide that. Photometric plan needs some issues addressed there. The 3-foot candles for the barrier-free spot needs to be increased. Parking lot light poles are proposed at 25 feet. Our ordinance limits them to 20, with the caveat that you can approve higher light poles for commercial projects, and I would recommend that the 25-foot poles be approved. They're full cutoff fixtures, so everything else meets the ordinance, and I think the 25-foot poles will give a little better light for that project. They need to provide a demonstration that the proposed dumpster on the north side meets our ordinance. It can be 3 feet from the rear lot line unless you decide it's closer. They did not show us a setback, so we need to verify that. Landscaping meets the requirements of the ordinance, and the plan needs to be reviewed by the city engineer. This is a special use permit, so I've given you the typical or the required standards. In my opinion, it meets those standards because it's a retail use. Most of the items center around traffic circulation leaving the site, whether or not they have enough parking spaces to meet their needs, despite the fact that it doesn't meet our ordinance. So with that, I would ask if any commissioners have questions.
I'm looking at the site plan there, that appears to be a kiosk or an order board on the entrance of that, and it looks like the flow to the drive-through does go north.
Yes, that's right.
So it doesn't, it looks like it works.
Kind of works. Mr. Womack raised a good point about if too many cars back up to the window, it would stop anybody from getting out of there. Or cars backing out at the same time. So it's a pretty tight site. But it can work. So we don't know who the other 2 tenants are. We just know that I think they told us that the one tenant with the drive-up window is a Jimmy John's. Mr. Nixon?
So the one thing that I'd like to ask you about is where the drive-up window is. Are we able to put certain only turn one direction signs?
I think, yeah, I thought about that. That's a good idea. If you put a sign there that says do not enter and left turn only, Because if they turn right, as Mr. Womack pointed out, it's going to go to AutoZone. I think that's
Advanced
Auto- Advanced Auto Parts. Now they can get out that way, and repeat customers will just ignore the sign and go out that way.
Well, the only thing that worries me is our delivery vehicles for Advance are on that side of the building. So they're pulling out from the west side of the building, going south towards 17 Mile, and then you've got all this new traffic coming in.
Yeah, the applicant, Mr. Murray, gave us a description of that. And he commented that the truck deliveries for Advanced Auto Parts happen before 10 a.m., whereas Jimmy John's doesn't open till 10 a.m.
No, I mean our commercial delivery cars. They would be pulling out, and so if we had too much traffic coming down by the west side of the building, it could cause a problem.
Could be, yeah, yeah. So that whole area where cars exit the window and other cars are coming in, maybe it's a right out. They can only turn right if they're driving through the project, and cars leaving the drive-up window have to turn left. And then you stripe it and sign it and
Hope for the best.
get the best, yeah.
They're gonna go where they wanna.
Yep.
Right, or you can decide that it just doesn't work and have them come back with a different site plan. That's not what they want to hear, but that you have that discretion.
What's your opinion on this, Mr. Johnson?
What's my opinion on it? I think if you stripe that and sign it, I think, given the fact you have slow-moving vehicles and cars backing out of those spaces on the right, to the right of the exit, I think folks will go slow enough to figure out that they're in the danger zone, and they probably should get out of their car and walk to the drive-up window or walk in the front door. Yeah, I think it can work. A lot of these things, you don't think they can work on paper, and they tend to work, in real life, so.
Does the commission have any other questions for Mr. Johnson or Mr. Womack before I give the?
Last one.
Because when those questions are finished, I wanted to throw it to the applicant, since we promised they'd have the opportunity to answer something. Go right ahead.
So with one business being there, the 37 spots would probably work. But this being what, 4 suites?
2, maybe 3. I don't know if they have tenants for the other ones yet. I have no idea. All we can go is based on the square footage. And I think one of the site plans I had said both suites are restaurants, but they might not be. We just know that one of them is.
I was just wondering what your opinion was if it's 4 suites.
Well, it's the same square footage. Our ordinance does require different number of parking spaces based on the use. So if the remaining suites were, a recliner furniture store, that's not going to generate much traffic. If it's another restaurant or, a liquor store, a lot of in and out movement, that could be, just create more traffic through that site.
Thank you.
The representative, I'm sorry,
Yeah, I'm Melanie Hart with Paradigm Design, representing Mike Murray as the consultant engineer. I could answer a few of the questions. Mike, you might actually be able to describe this better. But there are multiple tenants. We did the parking calculation as all restaurant space, besides the one location to the east, that would be the Jimmy John's. So the east side of the building is where the drive-through would be, and that would be the Jimmy John's. And then I believe though there will be at least 2 other tenants, possibly 3. The square footage of the building is, I believe, only 4,100 square feet around that. The Jimmy John's itself is estimated to be, I think, 1,200 square feet of that building. Yeah, we have 1,200 square feet on the east side of the building for the Jimmy John's, and then the remaining area will be 2,908 square feet. So, Mike, do you have any tenants interested for the remaining space with the restaurant use?
Yes, so this is Mike Murray speaking now. And we have spoken to a number of restaurants that would fall under quick service restaurant, similar to a Jimmy John's. And one in particular, I'll cite just because they have a lot of stores throughout Michigan and of a number of different brands. So they bring a large sample set of what the trend has been and pre-COVID and what the trend is now and how they're adjusting or adapting to the new realities. And this would apply to the neighboring restaurants as well. So in generally speaking, what COVID has done is put more emphasis on app or ordering within the app. So you'll find that pre-COVID, many people were walking in and purchasing their quick service food the traditional way. But with COVID, what's accelerated are these loyalty programs and special offerings through the app. So since if you want to get free offerings or the specials, the trend is now 70% to 80% of the orders are pre-orders through an app. And as a result, many of the restaurants are finding that their customers are now predominantly walk-in customers to grab and go. And the drive-through is a important aspect of this because most of the people will pick up their pre-order right through the drive-through or through a designated pickup window. So the other restaurants that we've spoken to have looked at the west end of that little center, such as like a Pizza Hut and Wings that you would find on 10 Mile Road. And find the appeal would be, since so many of their customers are doing the pre-order, is that they can accommodate the walk-up delivery. Now, pressing the envelope, I've had requests from some of these interested parties to have a pickup window along that west side, just because with COVID, many people have purchased dogs, pets, and they have kids, and they don't want to get out of the car in any kind of weather, and so like to just drive up and collect their food. So that's, if you were to say what's the trend, and then the trend is going for more convenience so that people can grab and go. What we've been experiencing, or what they have been experiencing, is in many of the restaurants, is that the tables that they do have are really underutilized. So while their sales figures are up, the in-store traffic has been down. They're not complaining. It's just that there's a lot of tables that just are not being used. Maybe it's a health concern, and maybe that changes over time. But they don't believe so. They think that the new reality is really has worked so well that it's probably going to continue post-COVID.
Mr. Murray, this is Mike Womack. Can I just jump in for a second? I think we all appreciate how things go nowadays with COVID and pre-ordering your food and all that. But what we're talking about right now is there's something like 90 parking spots required for the proposed uses. There's 30 something provided. I'm guessing there's going to be 15 to 20 employees on site. They don't tend to carpool. So are you simply stating that you don't think that the parking lot's going to fill up? Are you suggesting that you're going to have alternative off-site parking? What's your end statement, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Well, the end statement is we have looked to the neighbor because there is a lot of parking out there. And we looked to the neighbor to say the reality is, people are going to be shopping at the family farm and home, and perhaps they want to divide and conquer, and let's have a reciprocal easement agreement for a non-restrictive reciprocal parking easement agreement. And we have not had a a positive response in terms of something in writing in that effect. We have a driveway access easement, but a reciprocal parking. I think the practice is, people can park in our site and someone from the car could go shop at Family Farm or Home while someone goes and orders a Jimmy John's, and vice versa. We would certainly not object if someone did that, and we're hoping that, the Family Farm and Home would not as well. There's a lot of parking out there, and we just feel as though, ultimately whatever is best for the customer is kind of what both of us would agree to. I'm assuming that. I mean, I don't have anything in writing from them.
Well, and so I hate to be the bad guy, but you're talking from the smaller sites saying, well, we think the bigger site's gonna be totally okay with this, but we have no evidence to suggest that.
Correct.
I'm not sure that they would be okay with it, candidly, or that I would get anything in writing from them. I mean, they may want to just say, no, they don't want to deal with it. I have reached out to them though, for that, hoping to get a reciprocal driveway easement. I mean, a reciprocal parking easement. We have the driveway with both neighbors, with Advanced Auto Parts as well as with, the Family Farm and Home. We developed the Advanced Auto Parts, so we drafted that language for the driveway cross access easement.
Yeah. One thing that might
We're pro
help
easements.
with the hardship, the Jimmy John's, I believe, Mike, you found that it would be about 16 to 19 seats. So if you saw,
Sorry, are you referring to myself or Mr. Murray?
maybe the whole plan commission, the argument for the less parking spaces, I'm not sure.
Sorry, you used the name Mike. It's a common name and we both have.
Oh, no, I was just blanketly stating that if you maybe could see floor plans or something along those lines, the Jimmy John's itself, I believe only has 16 to 19 seats to visualize maybe how many tables. It may only be, less than 10 tables, and then some counter seating. And then I guess you would add your employees, at least for the Jimmy John's. And for visual, about each tenant space would be about 20 feet wide and about, 52 feet in length. Some of that might be used as bathrooms. So they are very small tenant spaces. I mean, each one, the Jimmy John's might have the most square footage at the 1,200 square feet. The rest may only be around 1,000 square feet. So it does seem like it's just, I mean, these tenant spaces aren't going to have a lot of tables. They will likely, based on the tenants that Mike has been speaking to, are very in and out type restaurants. I kind of know, I go to some of these restaurants that he's mentioned, I'm in and out, but yeah.
The average customer stays 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I think we're all familiar with these types of restaurants. And I'm actually very familiar with a very similar strip mall back on the east side of the state. It's a very busy site. It's a little chaotic, but it works. My biggest concern is what I don't want is something we see on Main Street. The employees park in somebody else's parking lot, and then that tenant or that property owner gets upset about it.
Yep.
So we're talking about 10, 15, 20 employees in these 3 or 4 places. That takes up a half to 2/3 of the available parking. So I'd like to see some kind of agreement, some kind of offsite parking, something that would at least, say, hey, these employees can park somewhere else and walk in or something.
Yeah, I just have a question for the applicant. Assuming that the bigger businesses around there say no to sharing parking, do you guys think that with your calculations that this is enough for all the customers and the employees to park?
I truly think a floor plan would help understand maybe how many people would be in each location. There might even be.
But is that, sorry to interrupt, is that something for you that you still need to calculate first, or do you?
Oh, no, I
guys
did do the
think that based on
calculation.
that the 37 parking?
Yeah, there is a table based on your ordinance, and it does say, I believe I even calculated more than 75. I calculated 86 spaces based on your ordinance. So I think the staff report said around 75. So,
Plus employees.
um, I mean, just based on the ordinance, that's the table we calculated. I do have to say, as an engineer, the less amount of pavement is actually good, only because you're getting groundwater back into the landscaping areas. So I'm always on the side of, as an engineer, thinking more towards less parking. So you really want to have the exact amount of parking if possible. And so that's really for you guys to decide,
Yeah, I mean, my main concerns is the drive-through. I mean, we all know what our drive-through look like between noon and 2 o'clock right now. They're all the way out to 17 Mile. You're gonna wrap cars around and nobody's gonna be able to get in or out.
I'm further concerned by
And the lack of parking.
the delivery drivers that I'm assuming that would become John's or are getting more and more popular, that we would have a lot of traffic going in and out for deliveries, because that's the nature of the business, in a very tight space while trying to also navigate this drive-through that can potentially back up, as you've mentioned, our other restaurants tend to do. I see 4 parked, a staging area with 4 parked vehicles in it. Incidentally, there's another plan over here that shows the drive-through window in a different place with 5 staged vehicles. So I'm not really sure which one is the one that it's going to be. But either way, after that, we're blocking handicap parking.
Real quick.
That happens at McDonald's.
Yeah, so I don't know if you could see it on the drawing. The drive-through window is exactly at the center of the side of the building.
Mhm.
So that first car would be at the drive-through window. So yeah, you'd have maybe 3 to 4 cars before you start blocking the ADA.
So the plan are you looking at? I was looking at the grounds plan, the plan that had the bushes and stuff, and that's a totally different window.
So we actually, I can apologize for that. We reached out to our landscape architect before we made a few tweaks to the design. So she actually did the landscape drawing. That wasn't done by Paradigm Design. That was our landscape architect. So she had on her drawing, she had the drive-through window all the way up to the north. We changed that slightly after we gave her the CAD file.
Okay, because there's another site plan that has that too. Where
That'd be
it's
the-
all the way up to the north.
That'd be the concept plan, the original.
Might be, we're looking at the difference between page 156 and I'm not sure where the other one is.
I think
167.
the loom plan shows it in the middle.
But with either 4 or 5, I can see that filling up beyond that very quickly.
I'm currently getting requests from the restaurants along 17 Mile Road to now split into 2 drive-throughs because there's 10 to 12 cars stacked through there all through lunch.
Well, they should open their doors back up. Drive-throughs won't be so long. Yeah.
These are all valid concerns.
Mhm.
All right, you know,
We've asked, for what it's worth, we've asked Jimmy John's what they anticipate as their stacking to be, and they relate to us, it's just a couple of cars, 2 cars. Maybe they just don't do the volume of a McDonald's
yeah, they do.
or the others.
Sorry, Mr. Nixon, before you get in. So like I indicated before, there is a very similar strip mall by my old house on the east side of the state. And something I will say is that these sites do tend to be self-limiting. People don't want to be the 37th car in a row blocking parking. They just don't. And if you're going to be forced to park on the north side of that drive lane and walk across, God forbid, 30 feet to get your sandwich, you might just not go there today because you're going to go to Culver's or something. So as much as we're beating up on applicants, people do tend to self-limit going to these restaurants if they're not being convenient to their needs. Mr. Nixon?
Now, I'm looking at this plan on 167 and it talks about the loading area. And I know that Jimmy John's would probably get in a semi. Now, is that semi going to block the, between them and Family Farm and Home, which is that driveway that goes through there? And now you're going to have to drive through the parking lot. And then that's not going to be safe. You know,
Yeah,
Are you suggesting that they're going to kind of cross over that access driveway in the north-south?
they're going to be taking it up. And so that's what kind of worries me. That's going to cause problems with people trying to get into Family Farm and Home or, you know,
I'm looking at the dimension. I don't think we have it dimensioned exactly what that loading zone area is. But I mean, a large semi truck like a WB 67.
10 by 50.
And 10 by
No.
50.
Okay, I was hoping you knew because I don't know.
No, that's what
The
your
length.
loading area size.
Okay, I was thinking like, what is the length of a large, like a WB 67? I think the 67 feet actually refer to a length of the semi truck, right?
Mhm.
65 for the
Right.
trailer and another 10 for the
65.
tractor.
No, a normal trailer is 53 foot long. The tractor is 26 foot long on top of that.
Okay, so your loading area, maybe with that concrete pad at the dumpster, could be long enough?
That's only 50 feet long and you're not gonna get, so you're gonna be blocking the drive through there. That's the only thing that,
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, yes. So,
Eliminate the landscape.
and if there's multiple restaurants, how are they gonna all stagger their delivery times? You know, if, you know, if they're all, if they all order from different suppliers and each supplier says, we only deliver at 10 o'clock to your location in the morning. Now we've got 4 semis lined up there, taking up how much room?
so Mike, have you had buildings like this similar with multi-tenants? Do they coordinate with each other in some way to
Yeah.
schedule
Yes.
their deliveries, things like that?
Yes, that's a normal thing to do. And they don't all have the deliveries via semi. It's, you know, some of these franchises are not that large. And, you know, so it's a smaller truck than, you know, what an Advanced Auto Parts would have for their size store and their number of SKUs. And
I mean,
so, but there is coordination among, you typically among tenants so as not to create, you know, conflict points. And that's usually done, you know, by the managers or the district manager.
I would move to table this. I have problematic on trying to approve a site plan with not knowing how many suites are in it. And then there's obviously a parking issues. I would move to table till next month until the applicant can address.
I'll second that.
And I would like,
Yes, Mr. Nixon.
I would like to actually, next month, I would just like to know which site plan I'm supposed to look at. Because like I said,
They need
I'm
everything.
seeing, there's so many different ones that we're looking at. With 5 cars, with the drive-through at the north, the drive-through in the middle, and I'm confused.
Well, I'm concerned about the amount of suites. Is there 2 suites or is there 4 suites?
Well,
There's,
on their plans, there was 4 doors in the back,
Yeah.
4 doors in the front, so.
Then move to table it. Move.
Mhm.
Call for-
If I could comment on the, you may be looking at an earlier concept plan that was much larger, the building, and it just didn't work. And that has since been reduced in size. You know, so you know, we have a total of 4,100 square foot, and I think Melanie did the math, and it was 1,200 for Jimmy John's, which leaves the remaining, you know, 2,000 and I could do the quick calculation, 4,108 minus 1,200. It's 2,908. And, a typical tenant's around the Jimmy John size of 1,200. So you're looking at most likely 2 other tenants, most likely. To 1 other tenant who would take up the balance of the space.
So, thank you. I agree. The parking and traffic flow are a concern for me. So if this comes back before us, I'd like to see something that addresses that. And the delivery, where are we parking the employees? How are we handling delivery, driver parking, and in traffic through there?
And maybe a parking going with the tenant, getting something in writing.
Yes.
Right.
Parking.
My major
agreement.
concern is that there is, it seems like many steps along the way with delivery or with parking or with traffic, that we're extending this use out into other people's property too much, without having an agreement to do so. So if that can be rectified, I'd love to hear it again. Are there any other comments?
Nope.
All right, all in favor of tabling this until the next regular meeting? That's what you said?
Or when the applicant can
Complete his pack.
submit everything.
Do we need to amend your motion? Because I'm not sure that's exactly how I said it before.
Next meeting is fine.
I won't put on the agenda if they don't address some of these issues.
Okay, so in favor of tabling till the next meeting, say aye.
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 Aye, all opposed? Okay, so the motion's tabled. Okay. The next item of business is
I think it's Mr. Item B or
we are under new business, item 10B. Special land use for Thomas Maybe doing business as Van Cannabis LLC at 10 South Main Street. It's a recreational adult use marijuana retail store. And is this, I believe this is one that you had an opportunity to review, Mr. Johnson? I will throw it to you then.
Glad to walk you through this.
Mr. Maybe, thank you for sticking around. I apologize you were late this late in the agenda.
Okay, you're being asked to hold a public hearing and make a decision on this project, which is a special use permit for a adult use of marijuana retailer business at 10 South Main Street, which used to be occupied by Framed Images. You have a site plan in front of you. The applicant has provided all the information required by our zoning ordinance. A sketch plan is required and it does meet all the requirements of our ordinance. I tried to find something wrong with it, and given enough time, I probably would have, but I had to go on vacation. So the only thing I would ask is if they're going to provide any building lights or type of fixture, that they give us that information. Parking is acceptable because they can use on-street parking and they may use city parking lots, all of which are nearby. Waste container, they're going to use a rollout container, so they do not have to provide a dumpster. Building facade, taking a look at it, I believe it meets the requirements of our ordinance. They also meet the requirements for a marijuana retailer, such as more than 1,000 feet from a pre-existing public and private school. They do not share a property line with any single-family use. They will not co-locate with another marijuana use, and they have provided a security plan that meets our review, although we do recommend that the city police and fire chief review that. Probably the biggest item I had concern about has to do really with the state law and the delivery of marijuana. The applicant proposes to initially deliver marijuana through the rear door, which backs up to a public alley, but they don't have frontage on the public alley. So they need to obtain an easement to walk across somebody else's property to carry the marijuana into the building. If that does not occur, then their fallback position is to deliver it from the public street, which is Main Street. Now, a lot of our rules require that deliveries be subject to camera surveillance. So that includes the vehicle used by the secure transporter. If the secure transporter parks on Main Street, they're not on the applicant's property. Can they guarantee that where the transporter parks, that's going to be under surveillance at all times? They mentioned that the deliveries would take place before 8 AM or early in the morning. There's likely to be a parking space available in front of the building. If there's not, where will they park? You know, they park a block down, one space down. The state requires that that be under camera surveillance, but we get the first crack at it, so they should demonstrate that to us. If deliveries are at the rear door, where will a secure transporter park? And when the driver gets out, will they be under camera surveillance at all times? So we're going to let the applicant address that. We did send a question out to Lara whether they permit deliveries to be made from a public street. They have not got back to us yet. If they decide it can't be made from a public street, regardless of camera surveillance, then it has to be made through the rear. So we're waiting for an answer on that, and maybe the applicant already knows the answer to that. So all the other information is acceptable. ADA plan, waste disposal, odor elimination, blight elimination, customer plan. They do have a pre-qualification letter, which they've submitted to us. And under the special land use permit, I believe it meets those requirements as well. The only unanswered question is the delivery. So I provided you with a sample motion, which you can review before you get into it. So
What page might that be on, Mr. Womack?
His review, his report starts on page 242. So the sample motion would be a few pages
There
after.
we go. Thank you.
that concludes my report. Any questions for me?
This will be the first one that's pretty much complete.
Yes, it's very well done.
Did the proposed colors that we saw on page 195, were those I guess what I'm getting at is two businesses with light colors, we can have that in the city, correct?
Sorry, what do you mean by like colors?
Does it kind of look like Loom's colors?
I mean, look, you can have any color you want, but this is how the building looks today. Mr. Maybe did purchase this property and revamped it prior to and in anticipation of applying for his permit. So if you walk down the street, that's pretty much what you're going to see. Now, Loom is a much darker purple.
Okay.
I would classify this as more of a red color.
Okay.
So I think it's a great looking building.
No, I thought it was too. I just want to make sure.
Patches, very much.
Picking on Mr. Maybe.
Now, he can't put golden arches up front. That might be a problem.
Fine, okay.
I have no further questions for Mr. Johnson.
Oh, I would have the applicant
Thank you.
Thanks.
representative speak.
Mr. Maybe, your representative?
Hi, my name is Caitlin Sheets and I'm the attorney representing Mr. Maybe on this project. We prepared this application and brought in the great team of Newco to help us design this project. In regards to the delivery issue, Mr. Maybe is in talks with a neighboring property member. The easement that we require is just a very simple, potentially 2 or 3 foot wide easement that's accessed for a period of 15 minutes at a time when the delivery is being brought to the retail center. It's not, so we're thinking of, it would just be written in an agreement that Mr. Maybe has been talking, and it would just be a very simple easement for 15 minutes a day as required, and a 2 to 3 foot wide easement. And in regards to the issue of whether the delivery can be made in a public street, that's one of those potentially gray areas that we deal with the MRA a lot, the Michigan Marijuana Regulatory Agency. We're constantly asking them questions and following up with analysts on certain questions like that. And that's something that I'd be curious to hear back on the answer of that as well. But regardless of that outcome, we're willing to work with the Planning Commission and find a solution that is most suitable for the city of Cedar Springs, which is why we had proposed potentially an early morning drop off We have potential relationship with a secure transporter in the area that's willing to work with us on a delivery schedule that is best suited for Main Street and the image that you have for the building. So that's my brief intro. I would direct any specific questions to our architects as they put the plans together and are the experts in the design world in this. So I'm going to defer to them if you have any more questions. So thank you.
Do we
Yes.
have the access easement in the rear for delivery so it can be under camera surveillance?
Yes, the way that, and our architects can speak to the exact design of our camera setup, but the
Okay.
camera would cover the entire back area as well, because that is a state requirement as well through the MRA and LARA,
So
as
that-
well as the local
So
requirement.
that would be your designated delivery point, correct?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
Actually, it's a more pointed question. Do you actually have the easement agreement or not?
yes, we do have an easement agreement.
Okay.
Is that with the current property owner or a future property owner?
It's with the current property owner. And per Mike's request, the easement will be specifically for a marijuana related purpose. And we'll have the writing to include that it will be for a secure transporter for a limited period of time, a 2 to 3 width for a cart to push through the marijuana.
Great. Good.
Any other questions?
It's too complete.
Yeah. So, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I don't want to, I left the last applicant standing there for a good hour. and I don't want to do that again.
She is an attorney. She's billing by the minute, so the longer she stands up there.
Does the rate change depending on sitting there? Mr. Womack, then would you be comfortable with if this was submitted to the zoning administrators for his final approval?
Yeah, I mean, so my notes pretty much mirrored exactly what Mr. Johnson's notes indicated, great minds think alike, et cetera, et cetera. It's a pretty complete project. There are a few minor issues that I'd like to see addressed. Specifically, the easement access in the rear, the delivery and the lighting. Mr. Johnson, was there anything else that you thought needed to be addressed?
No, just the licensing ordinance says that the hours of operation are between 8:45 AM and 9:15 PM. So if they're going to have deliveries before 8:45, that means they're not open for business, but they can still accept deliveries. So, just to clarify that point.
So that being said, I'd like to see those issues addressed and the zoning administrator can, I guess, accept and approve of those modifications.
Lighting and easement?
I think it's appropriate that if they're going to propose that there be rear delivery, that they, provide some kind of evidence that the easement exists.
Okay.
I have a question. So what happens then if a new owner of that?
So that's a
place.
good question. And so, I don't know, of course, Ms. Sheets is an attorney, so I'm sure she knows, but just to be clarified, there's different levels of agreement that you can have. An easement would run with the land. It's kind of permanent. It's always there. It doesn't matter who owns the property.
Okay.
Which would be different from just a agreement or a license or something else.
Okay,
So yeah, we're looking for something that is long-term. It's
right,
not going to change based on whether the property sells or not.
okay.
Okay. So, Mr. Johnson provided us with a sample motion at the end here. There were a couple questions, at least one question I wanted to make sure with polling the plan commission before I try to make any kind of motion here. Is everyone in agreement with the facade plan as it's presented?
Yeah, I think it's nice.
Very much.
Okay. Then I will follow. Go ahead, Mr.
Well, before you get into condition number 2.
Yeah.
The last sentence says, provided delivery occurs before 8 AM. I think you should take that out. You should should say, provided delivery is under camera surveillance at all times. That's more appropriate.
So if we remove the words occurs before 8 AM and.
That was in there, their submittal, but it's not when it occurs, it has to be under camera surveillance.
Correct. Good.
So let me jump in for a second. So Mr. Johnson is technically correct that, under Lara, the rule is that it has to be under video surveillance, but I don't think there's anything wrong with the planning commission taking into consideration that we don't want totes of marijuana being, delivered at noon while kids are walking up and down the street trying to get lunch. So that is a totally appropriate thing. If this board wants to say has to be delivered before 8:45 AM or after 9:15 PM or whatever.
My question is, for the other businesses on Main Street, did we include similar language for them?
Yes.
Bad for the applicant. This is
I
marijuana.
just-
It's different.
Yep. I'm good with it, the way it's printed.
Wait with the 8 AM.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it should be before 8 probably.
I'd only recommend change to 8:45, only because that's when the applicant is planning to open. I'd anticipate they'll have somebody there 15 minutes early. They could do the delivery at that time. And it's only 45 minutes difference. There's not that much foot traffic on Main Street at 8:45 AM, but that's only a recommendation.
So are you saying you want it at 8:45?
I'm not saying when I want it, but I think that's an appropriate, I guess, nod to the applicant that you don't need somebody there over an hour before you're scheduled to open.
Go ahead, Mr. Conley, 8:40. How about let's draw at 8:30?
And Johnson,
One thing I'd like to point out, though,
yes.
it does start
Oh.
getting tight right in there.
Sir, could you
around
identify yourself?
8:45.
Yep.
Could you
It does.
Identify yourself for the record, please.
Yes, Randy Baker with Baker Insurance Group, formerly the Gebhardt Insurance Agency.
Yes,
I get
I'll
there about
recognize.
that time, and so does Wilson Chiropractic. And the tenants
they're
that
there.
live in that apartment, they start moving about 8:15, 8:30. So it gets a little congested right at that time.
Thank you.
Good point.
Okay. So I move to approve the request from Van Cannabis LLC. Everything else, I'm following the motion in Mr. Johnson's report until we get to review by the commission on July 6, 2021 meets the special land use approval. Approval is granted subject to the following conditions. 1 will stay as is. 2 will stay as is at 8 AM. 3, I would note that it is acceptable, the facade stamp is acceptable. And the remainder of this would stay as presented 4 through 9.
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
This is the most complete one we've ever got, first time.
Absolutely. All in favor, please signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Yeah.
Okay, where are we at now?
Let's put us at open discussion though.
Okay, so we are to,
Ordinance
Okay.
amendment, I think.
we are actually at item
The ordinance amendment.
10C, the motion to approve of the initial review policy.
So I'll apologize ahead of time that I'm sure this is not worded as well as, might be expected. But the city council strongly felt that some of these applications that we received, not just marijuana, but specifically marijuana business,
Grab the cookie, Rosie.
have been done in kind of a poor manner. And it was their recommendation that the planning commission required that any number of site plans go through an initial review with the city planner and or the zoning administrator prior to coming to the planning commission. Now, this is something that we did do with the G Rapids site. It's a very complicated site, and I do feel bad for them. But I think it eliminated a lot of the problems up front. So the question is whether this board wants to require that, and then under what circumstances they want to require it. So we're kind of in a strange transition phase right now where we've got second reviews, third high quality ones that don't need an initial review, but I think it's appropriate that we start shuffling some of these through that process, which will eliminate some of the hour-long discussions on the back.
So I'm attempting to bring up your note at the moment so I can read it.
48.
I was all the way back at 248.
This
Oh,
one.
okay. I think I confused myself when I changed the agenda around. 248, okay.
That one.
Okay, yes.
We can certainly review this again next month if you're not comfortable with it at this point.
Nope. Can I just say something?
Go ahead.
I'm in strong favor of this, because I feel like lots of the times what has hung us up is stuff that was probably gonna be fixed anyways or changed anyways. And so I definitely think that there should be some type of review process so that when we get it, we're going off of like what should be there and what all the details are, and then approving it based on if
So
it meets our ordinances or not.
I feel obligated to point out, though, that this is generally seen with disfavor from the applicants. Applicants seem to have this magical thinking that if they get in front of the planning commission as soon as possible, that their project will somehow get immediate approval, regardless of how bad it is. And so they generally don't like this.
I totally understand why they don't like it, because it seems longer, but really ones that we haven't had to review so many times get passed way faster.
You don't have to table
And
them as-
also, in terms of just general attitude from the planning commission, I'm a lot more patient than on the third time that they don't have anything, that then I just want to table it personally until they can figure it out and then bring it back to me. Because I have to read this packet every single time
Oh, you
to
read it?
look at all the, to look at all the changes. So to me, it literally is win-win for you to give me a packet that you feel confident in as the applicant, that you've done all of the behind the scenes work that has to be done anyway.
It
'Cause It's
also,
not like it's not like if you come to us first, then all of a sudden you don't actually have to do any of this stuff that we're
So
requiring.
there is, I think, maybe less so now, because it's been attenuated through the years, but a feeling from previous planning commissions that the city manager, zoning administrator, and planner were not bringing all of the material to you in a timely manner. Now, Ms. Hamel, you're new on the board, so that's not something you've experienced, but it did exist.
Mhm.
And there has been some trepidation in giving the planner and the city manager that kind of power over what you do and don't see. So that's an issue. And the third, and this is more of an issue for myself and the clerk, is that this kind of creates some timing issues for us, specifically regarding special land uses. So we don't always know that after going through the initial review, if they're going to be able to meet the next zoning enabling act required 15-day period to get onto the next agenda. So we could be put into these awkward positions where we're holding public hearings for a project that's not actually ready to be heard.
Mhm.
Now, if you guys don't mind being awkward with me, that's great. I'm happy to do it.
I personally think that maybe then limiting, like having it only go back and forth like a certain amount of times then. And I also feel like, I mean, really, it's pretty transparent. If you didn't think that you were being heard or it had gone to you guys way too many times and they wanted to be heard, they can always come to a public hearing and say, we have this project, we've gone over it 3 times, and we would like you guys to know that it's on the books and we want to be heard about it. I just know that it takes so much time to read these. And a lot of times we have been stuck on something like a color of something that is clearly not, like the applicant will say, oh, I changed that already and that's not really the color. Okay.
Yeah.
But we need to see, like, we need to be able to see that as like a full thing.
I think
ahead.
we all
Anybody
agree with
else?
that. No, I
Anybody else?
completely agree 100% with what you're saying. You know, we wasted so much time going back and forth.
When reading this initially, I agreed with it 100%, what you put down. At the same time, I recognize your point. We did have an issue before you got here, where we literally as a commission did not trust the prior planner. And maybe not the prior manager either, to make sure that plans were brought to us that were appropriate.
So maybe we limit it. It goes back and forth 2 times and then it's on our agenda.
And perhaps, and I'm leaning towards trying to strike a balance between giving the city planner, the city manager, and the city clerk leeway within this, so that they don't find themselves stuck behind deadlines that are artificial, while still trying to follow the intent of this, in that we get a well-reviewed plan before it comes to us. However you can make that happen, I'm happy with.
Well, so it's not our problem, I don't think. We give these applicants specific dates. You have to get it to by this time, and then we'll kick it back to you a couple of days later. Then you have 7 days or something to make those changes and resubmit it back. The issue is that we're having is they don't meet their end of the deadline.
Right.
Which then puts us in all sorts of awkward positions, because of course we do try to bend over backwards and get these in front of you, because we're pro-development. But you know, the applicants want to be in front of you, and they do not want to hear the, oh, I'm only 6 days late, you know, now I gotta wait another 30 days, right? So
They should be on time then.
I guess I have to agree with that.
Yeah.
Like, the world works on deadlines. That's how it works. And I feel like as a property owner or whatever, if you hired a contractor to fix up all the stuff that you wanted in here and they just said, oh, sorry, I'm not going to be there, that same business wouldn't have the patience of saying, okay, fine, we're still gonna keep it going. So I know that sounds like a hard line, but I feel like that's life, and we're all adults and we're all doing adult things, and I have to read my packet on time. I don't get to say, no, I didn't, I had too much stuff going on. I literally didn't spend any time on your project.
well,
Sorry.
something I think that Mr. Hall would agree with is we are transitioning into a city that is no longer so desperate for business that will say yes to anything.
Yeah, which is a really great position to be in.
We are.
We would not probably have approved of the fireworks store today.
And I'm not saying no exceptions. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, as a general rule, adults should be following the deadlines. If that is what gets you on the agenda, it's really for them to get you on so that we can talk about your plan. That's for you.
I have Mr. Nixon who had a point.
I had a question. Would this, would y'all taking a better look at it or whatever, would this help us in getting, like, from one applicant tonight, I didn't have a photometric plan. And from the other applicant, I had 3 or 4 different site plans to look at, and they're all different. Would this help narrow it down and be like, okay, what am I supposed to be looking at?
It should, yeah.
Okay.
Essentially, yeah.
I will admit that, you know, the planners can be the one mostly responsible for this, which is part of what he does anyways. But I was in here for 6 hours on Monday trying to write up the notes that you guys had for tonight's meeting. I simply don't have the time in my job to do this.
Mhm.
So we will largely be leaning on his reports. And of course, he works for other communities as well. So, you know, he's gonna have a date that's gotta be into me by this time. And then he'll try to get back to you by this time. And then they're gonna have a couple of days to make those changes. But we also have to sympathize with the applicants because they're also dealing with their own engineers and architects and building guys, you know, those guys don't get back to you immediately either. So it's, everybody wants to get their project done today. And unfortunately, I think we're gonna have some people who are not happy with the whole process. But ultimately, I think for you guys, and you guys are the bosses in this situation, it's probably for the better, right?
I have another question for Mr. Johnson. Do you feel like you're able to accommodate applicants if they're upfront about like certain challenges in terms of meeting deadlines? Or do you feel like it needs to be a certain date for you to finish everything that you need?
I try to meet deadlines when I give them. to them. Any good consultant will do that.
Okay.
So I think the best way to run a business, is set deadlines and stick.
Agreed.
And as long as the applicant knows what the deadlines are. they're not- they can't move.
Mhm.
That's not harsh, that's just reality. That's like you said, that's how the world works. Every developer is in a hurry.
Mhm.
But your crisis is not your crisis, and what usually happens, you hurry up and then.
They don't. Mhm.
So give them the deadlines. I think one of the issues that Mike brought up was, has to do with, when they come in the door, they want to be on this agenda. And the process is, well, you have to go through the planner for initial review first. You pretty much told them, you're going to have a public hearing on this date. And then there are deadlines to get the ad to the newspaper. And then it's 15 days before the meeting takes place. So we're under a deadline. If we say you can be on this agenda for a public hearing, then that raises expectations. So we have to somehow come up with, when they come in the door, we don't know when they're gonna come in the door. So that sets everything when they come in the door and make application. So you have to have a reasonable expectation that we're gonna look at your site plan first. And if you can get stuff back to us by this date, you can have a public hearing on this date.
Great.
And if they can't get it to us, it has to be before we send
Before
the
the
ad to
initiation.
newspaper.
Okay.
So we know what those dates are, we know what those lead times are, you just have to give those to the applicant.
There's another problem which I haven't spoken to before, and that is at the end of the day, I'm a servant to two masters.
Mhm.
You know, the applicants come in and they want to be here, and I want them to be here. So I bend over backwards, and through my office, I work them through all the problems, and I want the Jimmy John's for the taxable value because my citizens want to eat it, Jimmy John's. But I also work for you guys, and I want it to be a good plan, and I want you guys to be happy, and I want it to meet the requirements, and it's difficult for me to do both at the same time. So Mr. Johnson can be as mean as he wants to all these applicants, but I have to try to be nice to them.
Which I honestly think that this would help your case because it's giving them expectations. As opposed to it being kind of wishy-washy in like how many times you can come up or if your plan's gonna be set. I mean, we had a couple that went 2 or 3 times, that's 3 months. That's really, I'm sure that's impossible for planning. To think that you're gonna get approved this month and then we said, nope, next month, and then next month we still were like, nope. Like, that's not a good, that's not a good way to be planning on their side. So I feel like if they can then tell their people, we're gonna be on this date, and that's actually probably what it's gonna be. I feel like that would help.
Mr. Womack, does it help your position or maybe it harms it, I'm not sure. But does it help your position if you have a get out of jail free card for those projects that you feel are deserving for whatever reason to bypass some of these restrictions we're putting in place, provided you conference with the planning commission chair to get approval to throw it on the agenda earlier than otherwise would? Or is that is that just opening up too much?
I mean, look,
Vagueness.
it's always nice to have a good jail-free card. But the only plans that can ever come to my mind that would actually work for that would be very, very simple things. There's not gonna be many of them.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I'd appreciate that. And of course, I understand that the planning commission does trust my judgment, which is helpful. And I would use that as necessary. But at this moment in time, I just need to know, is this something you guys want to pursue? And are the listed items there the ones that you want to see initial reviews on?
I believe so. Let me bring it back up one more time just to make sure that.
248.
I mean, because most of the time it's gonna be all special land use items most of the time, ain't it?
It's gonna be mostly special land uses and green builds,
Marijuana business.
Well,
which are special.
Which
land
should also,
you're
yeah,
right.
and those should slow down.
Yeah, I think I'm good with all those.
Is there a way to revoke this in the event that the
Anything
planning
can be
commission
revoked.
doesn't?
Policy,
That's good.
Because of what you were saying, that the planning commission before didn't like trust the city management or whatever planner, whoever it was.
I think
So
that's,
is there a way to easily revoke if we feel like we need to be seeing stuff on the agenda as it comes in?
Yeah, I mean, you guys can always revoke your own policies.
Okay, so I have
and,
no
and
issues with this at all.
I only kind of follow your policies anyway, so.
Yeah.
Can we make sure that that is super on the record?
the only thing, the only clarity I want towards that is, they've got to run through YouTube first. If they feel like they're being blocked and they have a decent project, they have the chance to come to.
Right,
And
to
come to the
tell us
podium
exactly.
and say so. I think that it can be, we saw maybe some strong arming of some applicants a few years back under a different administration to try to make that not happen. But as long as we're clear in our materials that that the public has that option, I'm fine with it. I don't know where you need to post that, but yes.
I think a lot of this has come to us because of the marijuana businesses. They all want to get in to capture that one slot for them few licenses. So they're throwing anything on the wall that'll stick. And then, they sit here and we've all heard it. Yep, we'll agree to that. Yep, whatever the planner says. It's like, my opinion is, then why didn't you talk to the planner first?
Yep.
I think the fix to this problem will be through the council if they cap any of the future marijuana licenses. And that may be, I don't know, that's the council's decision. And that may fix this problem.
Not if another one opens up.
Correct.
If one falls through and then there's now another one, there's gonna be
Correct.
5 businesses trying to
So,
get on.
At least they aren't gonna overrun us all at once.
Well, not to be a cynical bastard, but this is what I deal with every developer, not
Yes.
just the marijuana guy.
Yes, understandable. And I think it would clarify a lot of things for us, like tonight, how many different addresses did we deal with on 17 Mile Road? And then how many different sets of prints that didn't match the initial application? And I think that filter is what we're after.
Yes.
It's not so much to jam them up, that you have to meet every one of these steps, but at least the bulk of them to speed up these meetings instead of debating the system for an hour and a half on each site plan.
Can I sum
That's
this-
where we're coming from.
can I sum this up with, in a perfect world, I would like to see only judgment calls come to us. We're here for judgment calls, in my opinion, not for making sure boxes are checked. The box checking should be happening over here. We should be making judgment calls because we know there's judgment calls in every project. So if the boxes aren't checked, other than the judgment calls,
Go for it.
Well, that's what we try to do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Discretion. We try to point out, here's what you have to make a decision.
Mhm.
and I think you're both of you are doing a great job. That was not meant to be.
Excellent.
That was not meant to be in any way. It's, it's,
We're trying to
if
eliminate.
that's our
work.
expectation, then
We're trying to eliminate work for you two, and especially Mr. Womack. You know, you spend hours and hours on this stuff and then we have incomplete packets. We have to table it. So we spend more hours
Yep.
with the clerk and everything, putting everything back on, gathering documents, correlate them. And they still sit there and say, yep, we'll do it. Yep, we'll do that. Instead of approving it, saying yes in writing, like the easement agreements. Those should have been in place.
Yeah, well, developers move at their own pace and they have a lot
Very
of balls
true.
in the air at the same time. And you're not the only community I work in that has processing issues. They all do. And it's hard to get a plan right the first time. That
Look at-
never happens.
I know it. Mr. Maybe's property, that one, it was like, everything is right.
He had a small project.
Yeah, it was a small one, but still, it was, yeah.
And just kind of going back to the Jimmy John's project. So, you know, the whole 17-mile road area up there. In my opinion, I came to the game late because I wasn't involved in that, but it really doesn't work very well.
No.
And when you throw in Jimmy John's, and that's putting 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag, use a planning term.
I was gonna say that,
yeah,
you're
that's
putting
exactly what it felt like.
way too many businesses.
I
in
think that site
square.
works with one restaurant there,
Mhm.
not 3 or 4.
It'd
You
be
put a
small-
Jimmy John's there, perfect.
Yeah.
Then try to throw a Pizza Hut, a Jimmy John's and something else. There's no way. It ain't gonna work.
Together.
It ain't gonna work. I know my teenage boys and all their friends love Jimmy John's. Teenagers eat Jimmy John's
Oh, yeah,
way
every
over.
day.
And you put that out there and it'll be full. That driveway will be full.
It's just my issues.
It feels like they're getting greedy.
Out, the out area that we talked about might work. It's reluctant to say it might work, but you know, it's
Yeah.
just kind of a tight site for what they're trying to do there.
Well, same
Operate.
thing Mike said, the people that work there are gonna fill up over 2/3 of the lots.
Yes. Or more.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Yeah, bearing
Yeah.
time, I want to make sure, is there anything else that we need to add to this before we move on? Do you have the question answered adequately?
Are you adopting the policy?
So, oh, yeah.
I would like to move to adopt the initial review policy.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I think it needs to have a get out of jail free card on it for them. If they feel that this item is very much complete and it's a no brainer that it should come directly to us.
No, I think the city manager / zoning administrator probably use his best judgment.
Yeah, that
Mhm.
there.
As long as the city manager zoning administrator feels like that's allowed within the motion that we're
Like I
making.
said, I only kind of follow your policies, so.
Okay.
We
You
get it.
wouldn't know anyway.
Yeah, well, my bosses seem to be okay with it.
So I would be open to that amendment then for the zoning administrator to be able to pass along through the process then,
Use his best judgment.
to use his best judgment.
And do you second that, Mr. Hernandez?
Yes, I do.
Oh, you second it. All right.
Yes, I second it.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, certainly.
Oh, that would be lovely. Just let me know what you want to table.
But it's 9:30. I
Yeah.
hear it's a world holiday. Universe holiday.
Is it really? Oh,
What
yes.
does that even mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, This way.
Yeah, Heaven and Nature sang actually.
Oh,
50 years ago.
my gosh.
We need to go to the streets and celebrate.
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot about it. I thought I had another birthday in between beginning and end of this meeting.
Move to
So,
adjourn.
of the items that remain, we were going to go back to the old item, the fence and the
Overlay.
overlay. So Are we moving to table those? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah.
Okay.
I moved to table until our next meeting.
So we probably have to do this one at a time, so
No.
to be official.
I
So
moved to table the
walls and fences was the first one.
walls and fences ordinance review until the next meeting.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye. I moved to table the White Pine Trail overlay zone until the next meeting.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so both of those motions carry to table those, which takes us now to correspondence. Is there anything you would like us to do with correspondence?
So there's been a lot of discussion about some of the properties out in the HC district and multifamily developments. So the clerk very helpfully dug out a 2001 425
Oh,
agreement
yeah.
master development plan. I breezed through it. It does indicate that multifamily units are permitted out there. But I would recommend you think on that issue because I anticipate we will receive some kind of application for that sometime soon. The 2206/218 North Main Street Kizu retailers. I strongly anticipate that he will withdraw his project soon. And within 2 seconds later, we will receive a new marijuana application for that exact location, submitting the already approved plan.
Is that for the K-kind one?
This was K-kind, which will likely be withdrawn. And the new one, I believe, will be cloud cannabis.
This is where preferred landscape was.
No. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Preferred landscape.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
I also added the City of Nuevo's caregiver marijuana ordinance. There's a 2016 ordinance, there's a 2018 ordinance, and a 2008 ordinance. The city allows recreational marijuana under 2015. We don't allow marijuana under 2016. Now we have to address the 2008. Not sure if this will actually come back to you for zoning review. It might be done internally regulatory to the city council, but I want you to take a look at it.
Mhm.
The clerk has helpfully set up all the Zoom meeting credentials for the rest of the year. Board members are at this point required to appear in person unless they have a medical reason. I'm not going to ask which medical reason it is. And I approved of the minor set plan modification, Mr. Ganja, he moved that. That's correspondence.
Okay.
So now we're to city manager comments. Get a drink.
Long week. I hope you guys had a happy 4th of July.
Too hot.
It's really.
I ran after work today and I was still sweating as I got here. But yeah, big storm outside. Hopefully I'll get home safely. And I appreciate all the work you guys do.
City clerk. All good. Planning commission members, any comments?
No comments.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Happy birthday.
Thank you. I guess there's cookies somewhere.
There's cookies.
So make sure you get one. I told my
Mike's
wife-
had like 5 of
I
them.
told my
so.
wife not to bring them, not to do that. And then she said, but I already promised Mike I was. So
That's why he ran.
I don't get anything. And if there's no further comments, am I missing anything? Oh.
I have a
city council.
comment.
Oh,
It's me, Renee.
Would you like to identify a member of the public for public comment at this time?
That was too late.
I suppose.
This is Renee Race from the City Council. I just wanted to wish Clint a happy birthday.
Thank you. Are you speaking as a city council representative? Because that's actually what we were supposed to do next.
Sure.
Carry on.
I think Mr. Jerry Hall will be just fine for that.
Oh, okay. So it's been deferred to you, Mr. Hall.
Thank you. You know, on this initial review process, I was probably one of the instigators of that. And mainly it's to free up Mr. Womack's because he puts a tremendous amount of hours, including his staff, to revisit some of these site plans that they keep continually coming in. You know, I'm trying to figure a way or a happy medium, how we can streamline this process, still be business friendly, but still make them be responsible. You know, we want them to come here, but we want them to have a complete packet when it comes. Obviously, there's gonna be some glitches and changes and things that pop up. Those can be dealt with. But if we can iron out most of that stuff before we see it, we won't have this 3-hour meeting. Thank you all for hanging in there, and it's so nice to see all these smiling faces.
Richard Johnson, report of the planning consultant. Thank you. With
Thank
that,
you.
this meeting's adjourned.
Good job, guys.
Turn your computer off so the clerk doesn't have to. Oh, yeah.